October 22, 1962, Washington, D.C. stood still as President John F. Kennedy addressed the nation. American reconnaissance had confirmed the presence of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. The weapons were operational and capable of striking major cities within minutes. For American leadership, the logic was immediate and severe. Allowing nuclear missiles in Cuba would shatter the balance of power and credibility. The situation appeared to demand decisive action. What was not yet visible was that neither side fully controlled the forces they had set in motion. The crisis was no longer about leaders alone. It was about systems operating under extreme pressure. John F. Kennedy entered the crisis with deep awareness of nuclear risk. He had inherited a military structure built around rapid escalation and overwhelming response. American doctrine emphasized deterrence through certainty and retaliation. The United States possessed vast nuclear superiority. Strategic bombers, missile submarines, and intercontinental weapons stood ready. Military advisors presented options ranging from airstrikes to full invasion. Each option carried assumptions rooted in previous conflicts. Force would compel retreat. Strength would produce compliance. These assumptions had worked in conventional confrontations. Nuclear weapons changed their meaning. Once used, control would vanish. Kennedy understood this intellectually. The system he commanded was designed to act faster than human judgment. That speed was now a liability. On the opposite side, Nikita Khrushchev faced his own constraints. The Soviet Union had placed missiles in Cuba to correct strategic imbalance. American missiles in Turkey threatened Soviet territory with little warning. From Khrushchev's perspective, the deployment was defensive and rational. It leveraged secrecy and speed to restore deterrence. The expectation was that the system would remain unseen until complete. Discovery broke that expectation. Now Soviet forces in Cuba operated under standing orders. Local commanders possessed authority that could not be instantly revoked. Communication between Moscow and Washington was slow and indirect. Messages took hours to deliver and interpret. Decisions outran diplomacy. The system moved faster than the men attempting to control it. As the United States imposed a naval quarantine around Cuba, military forces worldwide elevated readiness. Strategic bombers armed with nuclear weapons went airborne. Missile crews entered launch status. None of these actions were symbolic. They were procedural. The system responded exactly as designed. At the tactical level, risk multiplied. Soviet submarines near Cuba carried nuclear torpedoes. American destroyers deployed depth charges as warning signals. Neither side fully understood the other's rules of engagement. Local decisions carried global consequences. One misinterpretation could trigger irreversible escalation. The crisis persisted, not because leaders wanted war. It persisted because systems built for war had been activated. The turning point did not come from a show of force. It came from restraint within the system. Back-channel communication. Kennedy rejected military pressure that demanded immediate action. Khrushchev accepted compromise to preserve control. Both sides recognized the limits of command. The agreement that ended the crisis was simple. Missiles would be removed from Cuba. American missiles would later be withdrawn from Turkey. No victory was declared. No defeat was acknowledged. The system stood down. The Cuban Missile Crisis did not prove the wisdom of leaders alone. It exposed the danger of systems that could outpace human control. Survival depended on slowing processes designed for speed. After the crisis, communication lines were improved. Doctrines were revised. Safeguards were added. The lesson was clear. In the nuclear age, war is not prevented by courage. It is prevented by systems designed to stop themselves. The world did not avoid destruction because someone was brave. It avoided destruction because the system paused long enough for reason to intervene.